Our focus for our lesson today is going to be using models to divide by a one-digit whole number. So we're going to be taking decimals and we're going to be dividing them by whole numbers, and we're going to model what this looks like. Now, if you remember, when we look at modeling, the reason that we start with modeling when we begin to look at strategies is it really is that concrete visual piece that shows us why algorithms work the way that we do. So the very first problem that we're going to take a look at is on page 313. And it says Chris paid $3.60 for 3 pens. Each pen costs the same amount. How much did each pen cost? So if each pen costs the same amount, I can divide by 3 because I'm going to be grouping them into the same amount. So when I group, to show my modeling, I'm going to group this. I'm going to take the $3.60. I'm going to group it into 3 different groups. You'll notice that this right here is going to be tenths, and then we have x's are going to be hundredths. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to make it tenths or ones in this case. So when we look at this, I have $3.60. So I'm going to take my 3. I'm going to take this value here and I'm going to divide it by 3. So I have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make that a whole because of what I have. So I have my wholes. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to take my next value, which is going to be the 6, and I'm going to divide that by 3. But because it's in the tenths place value, I'm going to use my tenths as a model. So I'm just going to evenly divide it until I get to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if this right here represents a whole and these right here represent 0.1, $3.60 divided by 3 is going to be equal to $1.20. So again, when I model this, I don't need to actually use the place value model blocks. I can draw a quick representation of it to show how I break this apart. So each one of these is worth 1. This is worth a tenth. So I have a whole and 2 tenths in each group. So that's what my answer is going to be. Okay. So if we take a look at our next value on the next page, we're going to have 3 friends traveled, or 3 friends received $2.58 for aluminum cans they recycled. They decided to share the money equally. How much will each friend get? So I'm going to take $2.58 and I'm going to divide that by 3. So again, just a quick reference that this is equal to a tenth. This is going to be equal to a hundredth. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and I'm going to see, do I have a whole number? Is 2 larger than 3 or smaller than 3? It's smaller than 3. So when I look at this, my answer is going to be less than 1. The quotient is going to be less than 1 because my dividend is smaller than my divisor. So my answer is going to be less than 1. I don't have a whole value here. I'm not going to use my whole value place block. So I have to look at how many times 3 goes into 25. And so I'm going to break that apart first. And when I divide 3 into 25, if I look at the 25, this is going to be 25 tenths. So I'm going to break it apart. So I'm going to break apart my 25 into 3 equal groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I can't do 25, so I can't put 25 here because it's not going to be equal. So I'm going to have to take that extra 1/10, and I'm going to have to model it using my hundredths. So if I have 1/10, that's going to be equal to 10 hundredths. So then I'm going to move into using this guy. So now I'm going to break it apart. So I have tenth hundredths and 800ths. So I have 1800ths that I need to model. So I'm going to start by modeling. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, nope, 16, 17, 18. Forgot the value I was going to there for a second. So now when I look at this, I have 3 equal groups. They all have the same amount. And so I just look at how many tenths I had. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 tenths. And then I look at how many hundredths I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my answer here, $2.58 divided by 3 is going to be equal to 86 cents. Okay. All right. Let us take a look at the convince me on the bottom of the page. And so I have the next week, 4 friends got $8.24 for the cans they collected. How much money will each friend make? Estimate using compatible numbers and then calculate. So my compatible number, I'm going to leave 4 alone and I'm going to divide 8 by 4. So each friend should get around $2. So when I take a look at this one and I go ahead and I break it apart, so I had $8.24 and I divided that by 4. I'm going to use my models to help that. So I look at, do I have a whole value? Is 8 larger than 4? So 8's larger than 4, which means my quotient is going to be greater than 1. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break apart the 8 into 4 equal groups. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I look at the 2. Is 2 able to be broken apart by 4? The answer is no. 2 is not able to be broken apart by 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the 2. And I'm now going to look at it as, instead of 2 tenths, it's now 24 hundredths. So I'm going to do 24 hundredths divided by 4. So I'm going to break the 24 hundredths into 4 equal groups. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So if I look at my total groups, how much I have in each, I have $2.06. Okay. Alrighty. And then the other way that we can do this is we can actually show this in a division problem. So if I were to show this in the division problem, I would do $8.24 goes inside the box and I would divide it by 4. 4 goes into the 2 here. We leave the decimal place alone, right? We're going to just leave that decimal place alone for right now. It's going to stay in the exact same spot in the quotient as it did in my dividend. So 2 goes into 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I write 8. I subtract, I get 0. I bring down the 2. 4 can't go into 2, so I write 0. And then I bring down the 4. 4 goes into 24 6 times. 4 times 6 is going to be 24. I subtract and I get 0. So that's the other way that I can model this, is just leave the quotient or leave the decimal alone. I'm just going to bring the decimal up and leave it alone. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at your guided practice on the next page. Practice on the next page. It says number 1, should you start dividing the ones first or the tenths first to find 9 36 hundredths divided by 4? So we would start with the ones first. So we'd start with the ones before the tenths, because 9 36 hundredths is going to be greater than 4. So my quotient is going to be greater than 1. So I look at how many times 4 is able to go into 9. Okay, number 2, it says, how is dividing a decimal by a whole number similar to dividing a decimal by, or dividing a whole number by a whole number? Okay, so if you notice that very first problem that we did, the steps were the same that we had. So the steps are the same as dividing a whole number by a whole number. The only thing that was different is we need to make sure the decimal place goes in the right spot. But the decimal place needs to be put in the right spot. And so in this case, we're just looking at the couple visual models that we saw. We saw that the decimal didn't move. So it's one where we just bring the decimal straight up when we are dividing a decimal by a whole number. The modeling showed me that, but it's not always going to be the case. So when we're dividing that decimal by a whole number, we just bring the decimal straight on up. Okay, number 3, it says use models to help you divide 2.16 divided by 4, and then we are going to put it into the algorithm. So I'm going to do 2.16 divided by 4. I'm going to put that into the box. So if we take a look at our model that we had down below, 4 is too large, 2 is less than 4, so my answer is actually going to be smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 0 right above here, and then I'm going to bring the decimal up, and then I'm done. I don't have to worry about the decimal anymore. And so I can't do 4 divided into 2, so I have to look at how many times 4 goes into 21. 4 goes into 21 5 times. So if I do my model, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I didn't have enough to do that extra 1. So now I'm looking at my hundreds. 4 goes into 1600s 4 times. And so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 4 is 16. I subtract. I don't have any value left over. So here's my modeling for 2 and 1600s divided by 4. Here's what I do with the algorithm. The big thing to look at is right here. I just bring the decimal straight up, and then I treat it like a normal division problem. Get a couple more. So I'm going to work on problem number 4, and problem number 4 says 3 divided into 1 and 35 hundredths. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring that decimal up, and now I'm done. I don't have to worry about that decimal. The decimal is in the quotient, and I can treat it just like regular division now. 3 is not able to go into 1, so I need to put a 0 as a placeholder because that value is in front of the decimal. And then I look at how many times 3 goes into 13. 3 goes into 13 4 times. 3 times 4 is going to be 12. I'm going to subtract. I have 1 left over. I bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 times 5 is going to be 15. I subtract. I have nothing left over. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 6. So when we look at problem number 6, I have 5 divided into 6.85. Very first thing I do, let me put a box around that so we know that that's the problem we're working on. So I bring my decimal up. So decimal is placed. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then I look at, does 5 go into 6? Yes, it can go in there 1 time. 5 times 1 is 5. I subtract. I have 1. I bring down the 8. I look at how many times 5 goes into 18. 5 goes into 18 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. So I'm going to write 15 underneath. I'm going to subtract. And then I bring down my 5. 5 goes into 35 7 times. So 5 times 7 is 35. And I know I wrote, looks like 36 is 35. And I have 0 left over. So that's how we're going to use that standard algorithm, remembering really to bring up that decimal into your quotient, and then you treat it like regular